Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber. When I'm not interviewing world-class guitar players, I'm busy helping clients with their marketing. In fact, since March of 2000, I've helped over 300 clients in 108 different industries all over the world sell everything from $20 books to $5,000 seminar seats and everything in between. I even authored a marketing book called How to Make Maximum Money with Minimum Customers. And now I'm giving away a free marketing strategy session to business owners who qualify. On this call, we'll discuss what's currently working in your business, specific sales and marketing problems you're struggling with, and I'll identify specific strategies you can use to overcome these problems and increase your cash flow. To find out if you qualify and to book your free marketing strategy session with me, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing right now. Again, to book your free marketing strategy session with me, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing right now. Thanks for listening. Now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and I'm a blues guy, as you all know, and I'm with a really soulful, really cool blues artist who plays the shit out of a guitar. We're with Sue Foley. She's a multi-award-winning musician and one of the finest blues and roots artists working today. She actually spent her early childhood in Canada and started her professional career at 16. By 21, she was living in Austin, Texas, and recording for Antone's, the blues label, and historic nightclub that helped launch the career of Stevie Ray Vaughan and many other blues artists. Sue's toured steadily with her band, touting her signature pink paisley Fender Telecaster, which is a very cool-looking guitar. In 2001, she won the prestigious Juno Award, which is, I think, Sue, the Canadian equivalent of the Grammy?
That's right.
All right. For her CD, Love Coming Down. She also holds the record for the most Maple Blues Awards, which is 17 of them she's won, including guitarist, female vocalist, songwriter, and entertainer of the year, all of them multiple times. And she's earned 3 trophies de Blues de France. Did I say that right?
You did.
I did. Amazing. As an offshoot to her professional recording and touring career, Sue started a project called Guitar Women, based around dozens of interviews she conducted with the world's leading female guitarists. From 2001 to 2008, she wrote articles, organized and promoted concerts, and worked on a book, fueling her passion for gender studies in music and her desire to bring the work of great women guitar players to light. And she also has a column along those lines called Foley Files every month in Guitar Player magazine. She's toured and shared the stage with, check this out, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Lucinda Williams, Tom Petty, Joe Cocker, Johnny Lang, Chuck Rainey, Johnny Winter, Coco Taylor, Pinetop Perkins, Jimmy Rogers, Lowell Fulson, Jimmy Vaughan, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, Albert Collins, George Porter Jr., Clarence Gatemouth Brown, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Van Morrison, Nina Simone, Ronnie Earl, Duke Robillard, Keb Mo, Hubert Sumlin, the late Hubert Sumlin, George Thorogood, and Roy Buchanan, amongst others. Her latest album is The Ice Queen. It's a fantastic record. We'll talk about some of the tracks on it today, and it features guest stars Jimmy Vaughan, Charlie Sexton, and Billy F. Gibbons. It's a great blues album, and Sue also has a distinction of looking at least half her age. I don't know how you do that. We'll have to have a separate podcast, figure out what the hell you're doing, Sue. But thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Man, my pleasure. Thanks for that.
Hey, you're originally from Canada. I was curious what prompted you to move to Austin, and what were you doing in Canada at the time you moved?
I was playing. I started, like you said, I started playing professionally at 16, and by 21, I was living in Austin. I was a huge fan of Texas blues, and I'd been following the scene. Everything I loved was happening down in Austin. We were all familiar, like Stevie Ray broke through around, 1984, 85 or something. And I was just getting into blues, and I was just aware. And then the T-Birds, and then I saw the T-Birds live, and then I saw an Antone's. Antone's ended up being my first record label, and they were the nightclub that hosted Stevie Ray and the T-Birds and all these blues artists that were coming down to Austin to play with these young kids, all the guys from Chicago and Louisiana, all the older people were coming to Austin and playing with these young kids, and that's what was happening, and that's where they developed that sound. And up in Canada, this was like a mythical land for me, you know, because I was a kid, and I was like, what is happening down there? And so I was obsessed with it, and I saw a few Antone's road shows, and it ended up, you know, just sort of like a dream come true that I finally met Clifford Antone, the mogul who owned that nightclub, and he invited me to town. I sent him a demo tape, and that was it.
Were your parents like freaking out?
My parents had no idea what I was doing. Those were the days when your parents didn't watch everything you were doing.
Yeah.
You know, like I was a little child in the 70s, but, you know, we were all free back then. You know, we didn't have cell phones and everybody tracking us.
Yeah.
We were entertaining, right?
That was great. Back then, your parents didn't pay. They were not smart enough to be on top of that.
Back when it's dark, you know, before dark. So they really had no idea. They knew I played guitar, and I made my way through high school, but I was already gigging, and I was really just into what I was into, and I wasn't gonna, you know, I left home at 18 and moved to Vancouver on my own. I think my parents must have thought, oh my God, you know, what's our daughter doing? But I came back with an album. I moved to Texas. I did it.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Do they know what you're doing now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're the most proud. I mean, my father's passed away, but my mother is, you know, obviously my biggest fan. So.
That's nice. That's really cool. So once you got to Austin, I had a question. How'd you get work? But you came there because Clifford Antone invited you down.
Yeah, I came into the center of it all. I mean, I was invited by Clifford Antone. I stayed at Clifford's house for almost a year. He put me on stage because the club at the time, they brought in all these blues artists. They brought in Albert Collins and Buddy Guy on their own, and they would play with the house band. And Clifford put me in the house band shortly after I got to town. So I got to play with all these legends that are, most of whom are passed on now. But I was just in the house band with George Big Beat Raines, and Derek O'Brien, and all these great Texas artists. And I was just like hired hand.
So you were playing in the house band? Mm-hmm. Oh man, that was great tuition.
Oh my God. Yeah. I couldn't get a better education. That was Cinderella land for me, because I had come from nowhere, remember? I mean, Canada's not nowhere, but it's not exactly what you think of as the home of the blues. And,
yeah.
And a young white Canadian girl is not who you think of as a blues guitar hero. But, you know, I just got right into it, and I thought I'd landed in heaven.
How many sets were you playing there a day, and how many days a week?
Well, it varied. I mean, I ended up bringing my band down from Canada, all a bunch of, you know, we were all 20 years old and wet behind the ears, but they all followed me down there. So we started touring out of there and recording for Antone's, and we would play sometimes a night at the club. I think for a while we had a weekly night, and then when they brought people in, I would usually get a call to be the second guitar behind Derek O'Brien, who was number one call.
That's so cool. Really cool. So let me ask you, you've worked with a bunch of artists, and I was curious, let me throw some names out there. If you could talk about how you wound up connecting with them, and maybe a cool or interesting story about working with them. And I have them in an order. I'm going to go in a different order, like Nina Simone, who is just a force of nature. I mean,
yeah,
amazing.
Well, I didn't meet Nina, and we were just on a big festival in England with her. So it was one of those situations where we were all on the same bill, and we got to hang around backstage and sort of just be in her presence. But I think she passed away a few months after that gig, or not too long after. So it wasn't in the prime of her career, but yeah, it was just like sort of like, you know, God's in the house.
Yeah. Did you see the?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we saw her show, and we tried to, you know, but we couldn't really get close to her, so there wasn't much to report in that way.
Did you see the documentary on Netflix about her life?
Yeah.
It was pretty tragic, you know. I mean, I didn't realize she had suffered from mental illness like that.
Yeah, it was tragic, and it's funny how you can spin things. I found it a little too tragic in a way. It was kind of like, whoa, you know, but...
Yeah.
It's funny how you can spin things and make it a documentary look. I mean, you could have focused on other things in her life and made it look completely different, but yeah, it was pretty. It was hard to watch, actually.
Yeah, it was like, you didn't realize that if it was true, you didn't realize how crazy she was. Like, with her kid, her daughter, and all that stuff. It was just the whole thing. Yeah, it was too tragic. It kind of, you're right, because this is really weird. When we used to listen to Nina Simone a lot, and my older son, who's like 28 now, when she died, which was what, 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I remember I told him, he was like crying. That's
Aww.
what, yeah. I mean, because he was like, I was like, "What's the matter, Nick?" And he goes, "Dad, she was just so," because we used to listen to her all the time. So it was like, but she had that power over people, I think.
Oh my God, she's unbelievable. I mean, yeah.
So speaking of tragedies, let's move on to another one, Roy Buchanan.
Yeah, that was another. We opened a show in Vancouver for him at the Commodore Ballroom. And once again, I can't remember if we even met him. When we were close to him, and we were side stage while he played, and it was pretty wild. I mean, of course, I'm a Fender Telecaster player, so I always pay attention to all the tele players, but he was just brilliant. And yeah, it was. I think he also passed away not long after that show,
Did he? You read so much about people posthumously, you don't know if it's true or not. And like, one of the things I've read is that he used to turn around when he was playing because he didn't want all the. They say that he didn't want other guitar players to see what he was doing and how he was doing it.
I didn't know that. We were side stage. I don't remember much about the show. But it was a big show at the time. I remember it was a, big audience, and it was a big opportunity for us. We were pretty young.
Johnny Winter.
Johnny Winter, we toured with them off and on a lot in the early 90s. So we were one of the young blues bands that got the honor of opening up. We were on the same agency as Johnny Winter and so many people, Buddy Guy and Coco Taylor. So a lot of those names you see on that list were people we were toured with. We got to tour with as a young band, and Johnny Winter was one of them. We toured with them a lot and watched Johnny night after night. He was just a wild. I mean, I was really influenced by those early Muddy Waters, or those later Muddy Waters records with Johnny Winter, Hard Again and I'm Ready. And I thought some of that playing Johnny does on those albums is just like blues playing 101. In fact, when I first started learning blues, I took a few lessons from a guitar player in Ottawa named Tony D. And he said, check this album out, because what Johnny Winter's doing is really specific, and it's kind of like 101. This is what you need to know. And I really studied that stuff. So Johnny was just a hell of a man, such a great guitar player. And but we didn't meet him either, even after all those gigs. They would just shuffle him in and shuffle him out. But we hung out with the band a lot, and everybody was really cool to us.
Was Paul Nelson in the band then?
Dude, I can't remember names
very
well.
No, it's all good. I think he was with Johnny a little after that. And then Buddy Guy. Buddy Guy
as well was we got to tour opening for Buddy Guy night after night, and that was wow, one of the most profound experiences you can have as a young guitar player. Because it's one thing to watch somebody's show, but it's a different thing to watch them approach an audience every night and see what they do and talk to the band. And Buddy was very approachable with us. He was really sweet and accommodating, so we were able to be friendly with him personally and hang backstage and steal sips from his Remy Martin bottle every night, which was always the little game we like to play. They probably knew, but one of the big games that opening bands play is how much can we steal from the closing band's dressing room? Not personal stuff, just
food and stuff. Yeah.
We don't steal items, but food and drinks is key. Run in there to get their beers, or they'd be like, shoot, that opening band just cleaned us out,
It's funny. I was going to ask you about that because I've seen Buddy in concert several times in New York and down here. And there's like two different Buddy guys.
There is, or a few.
Yeah, a few.
That's what you mean.
Yeah, like
exactly what you mean.
One day he'll come on stage and he's cursing and everything's motherfucker. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, he's got to be hammered because he sounds hammered, like, buzzed, like really buzzed. And other times, he's this really cool. And other times he's like angry, like, name one of my albums. Like, he'll walk up to somebody, like, name one. And see, you guys don't even know that name. And he's always killer. Every show, no matter which Buddy shows up, it's like, wow. But so that you've seen that. That's normal.
Well, what I saw, I've seen the Buddy that plays the huge festivals and just does that sort of big show where he'll do the Jimi Hendrix kind of vibe, real rocky. But I've also seen him just play blues to the point of having everybody on the edge of their seats and being able to hold an audience in his hand like nobody I've ever experienced. He's just wow. I mean, we would be just like with everybody with their jaws on the floor. And this is back when these were clubs, and they were not really even big clubs. Clubs like the Double Door in Charlotte and places like that. And these places would be packed. I mean, just you couldn't squeeze another body in there. And the energy would be so electric, right? And he could just control it, and he could play some crazy good blues. I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So he's a god for me. I mean, I could never say a bad thing about that man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he's still out there at his age. I mean, it's just amazing.
He's like close to 80 or
He's
something.
over 80.
Over 80, yeah.
I mean, imagine.
Yeah. It's funny because I saw him, you mentioned small clubs, but there's a club here called Skippers. I don't know if you ever played it in Tampa.
Yeah, I've played Skippers.
And Buddy played there in like the 90s, I think, which is a cool club, but it's like, man, Buddy Guy's here?
And we could have been there with him. I mean, we played Skippers a bunch, opening shows probably through there too. But yeah, exactly. That place would have been jam-packed and just on fire, so... good time.
What's that?
This is really good times. I'm so glad I was there.
Let's talk about your new album. It's called The Ice Queen. It's got 12 really good blues tracks on it. Your playing is bluesy and soulful, and your vocals, in particular on the title track, are great. And I wanted to talk about maybe like my 3 favorite songs on the album, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so... just a couple of questions. In general, the album, it's kind of about like broken relationships. And it does sound like a little acerbic about, relationships in general. And, you don't have to be specific, but I was curious if a lot of those songs were like, you getting shit off your chest or,
Yeah. You can count on me to be honest in my music. And you can go back through listening to all my albums from the first album to now. And I don't tell any lies, and I don't write fiction. So everything you hear and on my albums is true. It's not always all about me, but it's true. It's something I've either witnessed or I've been through. So yeah, there's also some hope on the Ice Queen. There is some light. It's not all kind of dark, but it is about, and it's about a certain age too. I mean, I'm 50. I've been through certain things, and I've hit bottom a couple of times, and now I'm okay. You know what I mean? It's kind of
I do know what you mean.
That's just part of life.
Yeah.
You're gonna go down, and you're gonna come up, and it's sort of about that journey.
I when you said I don't tell any lies and I don't write fiction, That was very powerful. I appreciate you saying that. I really respect that because I admire that. I can't stand like wasting time. To do anything other than that is kind of a time waste for me. You know?
Well, that's the beauty of blues music is that's what you're supposed to do. And that's why blues music is pretty, not only deep, but it's hard music to play because it's not always easy or pleasant to tell the truth.
Yeah. To yourself, especially.
Mainly.
So talk about this track 81. It's got it's really great slow blues. And I was curious if you're playing your telly on there because it just sounded a little fatter than a telly.
You're right, and very good ears. What happened is that's actually an SG.
Oh, yeah, I love SG right there on the wall. I love them. Absolutely. What do you got in there? What pickups?
That I think it was actually an Epiphone SG, and it belonged to Mike Flanagan, our producer, the great B3 player. So he produced the album, and I had to actually overdub. There's very few overdubs on that album. It's like I would say 95% of the album is live, but we hadn't cut a guitar solo on 81, and I was coming back through Austin, but I didn't have my guitar with me, and so I borrowed Mike's, and I did that. And we liked that sound. It was different. It kind of just gave it a different dimension. So you're good ears on that one. It's definitely.
It was great.
Thank you.
You got a lyric in there, cruel old 81. Who's 81?
81 is a highway. It's an interstate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Interstate 81. It runs from southern Ontario all the way down. It follows the Appalachian Trail, and it goes down to Tennessee. And it's just a really hard road. It's got terrible weather. It's windy. And it's the only road you can really, when you're traveling down from Kingston, Ontario, south of there, where I was living, down to Nashville, it's the only road you can take, really, and it's just a horrible road. It's got a snowstorm literally 6 months out of the year. There's a snowstorm in the middle of it. There's a snow belt that goes through there, and I used to call it the gates of hell because it's like initiation. You had to go through the gates of hell to get back on this highway, and then it's just a pretty rough road to travel, so that's what it was.
That's very cool. That's also good to know that.
Yeah, and it goes down, all the way down, and when you get down to Virginia, you see the sign for Bristol, Virginia, and I was always fascinated by Bristol, Tennessee, and Virginia, where the Carter family and the Big Bang of country music happened in 1927. It's a real historical story, and sort of they say that was, where country music sort of sprang from, and became popular, and I just thought it was really fascinating. I love the Carters, so I reference that in that song as well.
Very cool. You also you had like some background vocals in the chorus right along with yours, and it sounded really good. It was different,
That's Charlie Sexton.
Oh, okay.
And the second guitar on that is Charlie Sexton, who's brilliant in the studio, and I couldn't say enough good about the way he just adapts to any situation, can play any style and make it better. I mean, his textures and his ideas. So that's Charlie Sexton. That's Chris Layton on drums. It's Mike Flanagan on B3. I think it's Chris Marsh on bass, who's a local Austin guy. Who's great bass player.
Very cool. Yeah, the vocals, the two of you guys, the background and yourself in the chorus, it sounded really good. It's not common, often that you have background vocals on a chorus like that, so it was nice. Okay, now the title track, the Ice Queen. So I was curious, where did that term pop up from for you? Let's see how brutally honest you are.
Yeah, no, I was that was actually the last song I wrote. I was going to call the album something else, and I had a different idea, and then I wrote the Ice Queen, and I showed it to Mike Flanagan, and he said, well, you got to call the album the Ice Queen. It just seems to encompass everything. But I was just playing with the idea of Ice Queen. I don't know where it even came up in my mind, and I thought, well, that's funny because I'm from Canada, and I could probably do something fun with that metaphor. And down here, they know me as the Canadian, so I thought, well, it's a play on that, but it's also the idea of an Ice Queen and what people think of them, and And then, of course, I love Albert Collins, the Iceman. So he's another Tele player. He's one of my biggest influences. This all kind of works together for me. So.
Very cool. You do some really great solo work and really good soloing in there. And I was curious, what were you doing to get the distortion on that track? It sounds like awesome.
I don't use distortion. I think that's just I've actually said it might be partially some bad technique, but I do get that distortion.
I wouldn't say, if listening to you, bad technique's like not an adjective that would come up.
Yeah, I don't know, but people have asked me that, and they said you get that natural distortion. It might be just the way I set, because I use a Fender Bassman 59 Bassman reissue, and sometimes I use a little booster pedal. It's a AC booster by I forget who it was. It's a real clean boost, and sometimes I set them together and dial it in so it's got a little more drive. But we just basically were playing with my regular stage sound. That's sort of like my Tele through the Bassman is sort of like my sound. And there's no distortion pedal or anything. It's just it's really pretty pure.
So it's just natural overdrive from the amp. Yeah, it sounded great. Really good on that. Okay, then if I have forsaken you, and so like, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I listened to that song. Your voice was like an angel, man. I listened to that about five. I mean, and I'm not like, hitting on you or I was like, oh my God, that was like very deep shit on that, man. It was like really intense. Yeah. How did you get those? These are probably stupid questions. How did you get that? Like, you had these wispy, hushed tones.
That would probably be a question for the engineer, Chris Bell, but probably the microphone he used or chose to use. And I just sang real close to it and didn't push my voice too hard, trying to go for like a Norah Jones or something.
It worked. It's like phenomenal.
Yeah.
Is there a backstory to that song?
Yeah, it's a great story because, I wrote the song, and I showed it to Mike Flanagan, our producer, and he said, and at the time, when you're in mode to record or you're getting into writing songs, sometimes you listen to things. You listen to things and they end up seeping into what you're doing. And I had started revisiting Two Steps from the Blues by Bobby Bland, a great album that I tend to revisit the same things over and over, but I would just started listening to that album again, and I guess that song, the progression and the sort of the vibe of it, just even with just guitar and voice. When Mike Flanagan heard it, he said, "Oh, we got to do a Duke Records production on this." And Duke Records Duke Records was the label out of Houston that did Bobby Bland and all those classic Bobby Bland things. There's horns, and so he wrote the horn arrangement, and we brought in the Texas horns, which is a five-piece horn section. They played live in the room. It was George Big Rains on drums and Jimmy Vaughan on guitar. I didn't play guitar on it. So Jimmy heard it and just, found something which is amazing to play on it. He just does his own thing, and it's just so cool. And we just kind of cut it live like that.
Honestly.
In one room. With 5 horns, Jimmy. It was one of those moments where everything just kind of, and everybody loved the track and were able to really, because I think what Mike Flanagan did on this album was call in the right people for the right tunes. And everybody was able to just really hone in on, I know how to play this, this is, so. After
you, once the take was over, did you know holy shit, I nailed it on this?
Yeah. It was like, wow. I was like, well, that was cool.
Yeah. Wow, that was a pretty magical sort of moment.
It was pretty crazy. And even when I hear it back, I'm so proud of it because it's just, it's a departure. It's musical. Like, you always want to make music and something that has dimension. And I think that song really does. I think it's got a really interesting message. and it's a kind of message I don't like to expound upon too much because I think people will hear it and, you know, they take it their own way.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
But it's about forgiveness, and it's about more like forgiveness of the self, you know, because sometimes when you screw up, or even if somebody harms you, it's like sometimes the person you got to forgive more than anything is you, right? And that's like the hardest person to forgive when we mess up. So that's sort of what it's about, you know.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. Honestly, that was really beautiful. Do you do that live?
I do, and I try to do it when I have the horns. I'm trying to work it up just with guitar solo, and it's pretty good. I mean, it stands up. It's a good tune, you know.
Yeah, it's just great. Do you feel pressure when you have like a moment like that? That's like, you know, one of those in the zone. Do you feel is it different when you're performing that live, or you just do what you do and whatever?
Yeah, we just do what we do.
Yeah.
I just do my best. Yeah.
It's good that you were able to say I was really proud of that. I think that's tough for some people to.
No, I'm proud of this whole album. I think I still listen to it back and I think, yeah,
it's great. You kidding? It's phenomenal. Good.
Yeah, so I got to stay pumped up. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
It's great. It's a great record, man. It's really well done. I don't know if this is a question that you can answer, but I was curious. You know, you've done so many different things with so many different people. If I asked you, like, what would be your top 3 experiences musically for any reason, like either because of the people in the room, because of the vibe, you know, because you just felt proudest of your, contribution, what would those be?
I really like the Jungle Show, which is the show we do with Billy Gibbons and Jimmy Vaughan and Mike Flanagan and Chris Layton. And we've just been doing that for the last couple of years, or a year really. So that's a really cool show. I love being able to be a foil for Jimmy and Billy. Like, I'm able to stand between them and sort of balance out how I support them. And it's a really cool concept and really a neat show, and that's really fun. I would say, without being specific about time, anything I did in the 90s at Antone's in Austin, being able to play with, you know, all those great, from Jimmy Rogers to Hubert Sumlin to Buddy Guy and Albert Collins to Earl King and people I got to back up that was pretty much mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's not almost not hard to believe, you know. Yeah,
and I'm not sure I could nail down a specific time, you know, but that was pretty awesome.
Sure.
Yeah.
You grew up in Canada. What was your childhood like?
It was good. It was we were a Irish Catholic Canadian family, 5 kids. I was the youngest of 5.
Oh, wow.
And, it was kind of a crazy household because there was a lot of people in it.
No wonder why your parents didn't know what you're doing. By the time the 5th kid comes around, it's like we got other shit to deal with right now.
Jobs and stuff. Yeah, no, it was a good time. Like, I got to follow my older siblings around. There was a lot of rock and roll and just a lot of music in the air, it seemed at the time. And the music was damn good. And I think getting into blues just seemed pretty natural because my brothers were all into Clapton and Hendrix and hard rock and all this Zeppelin and heavy guitar stuff, but I was all blues based. You know, when I finally got into blues, I realized, I've been hearing blues my whole life. And my father played Irish music and Celtic music, so I kind of grew up with that as well. But there was just a lot of music around and a lot of jamming in the house, and so it was a good time.
Yeah,
it was just a great time. Yeah.
What kind of work did your parents do?
My father was a machinist, and my mother did like office stuff, which I don't really know what she was ever doing. She worked. Yeah.
Did any of your brothers or sisters wind up playing music professionally?
A little bit. My father played a little bit professionally, not a lot. but he had a little group called the Gingermen, which was based on the J.P. Donlevy book. I don't know if you're familiar.
No.
It's a very famous Irish book about a drunkard called the Gingerman. And they had a band called the Gingermen. My older brother, Sean, he had bands. I don't know how much he was getting paid to play or what, but I just remember them jamming at the house all the time. As soon as my parents were out, it was like the drums and the bass and the electric guitar. I mean, that house was, you could hear it from a block away, right? And they were just, hippies and dope smokers, just like they were all high and jamming. It was pretty cool.
That is cool. How was was like weed in Canada? Where did people stand on weed during that time period?
At that time, it was illegal. It was like, yeah.
No, but were people like, it's illegal, but like it's not a big deal, or were people like, oh my?
Everybody smoked weed in the 70s.
Yeah. So it's the same as the States, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, all the kids were high as heck.
Yeah.
So, I was pretty young, but I knew what was going on. They were all long-haired, greasy hippies.
What are some of the bigger obstacles? I mean, you've had a really robust career.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you've done a shit ton of stuff, like really good stuff. And I was curious if there are any obstacles that you sort of had to overcome, like as we all do in life with stuff we have to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One of the biggest ones that every musician has to overcome is just being around people, because a lot of us are pretty antisocial, and that gets hard. And then you end up drinking and doing drugs and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't do a lot of that stuff. I never could. I didn't have the physical capacity to drink very much or do much of anything. But I think that's a big hurdle, is just being able to be sociable without leaning on substances. And I don't think even musicians talk about why we do that so much. But first of all, we work in bars, and everybody's drunk.
Yeah.
Or drinking and smoking but it's also, there's a social aspect to it. It's a really social business, and we don't necessarily grow up with that capacity, because we spent 10 years prior to that in our rooms with our instruments generally alone. Yeah. Most of us were not popular in high school. I mean, most of us were oddballs, and we just were odd, and then you get thrust into this, people everywhere, and you're like, shit. Have a drink,
Yeah.
I think that's a big hurdle. I think everybody has to come to terms with that.
Are you naturally more shy or outgoing? Do you tend to be shyer or quieter?
I'm better now. I think I was shy, but I think I would drink or do whatever, to stay in the game and try to be around people.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty shy.
Wow, well, you're doing a great job here. I would have never said you're shy.
I don't think I was born shy. I think I became shy in my teens, and just because I just got into my instrument and I didn't really socialize all that much.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you said that, because you become like a geek, like you sit in your room.
We're super geeks.
Yeah, right.
Cool, and you're like, really? I'm cool.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I thought I was the biggest geek ever,
Wow.
So,
what do you think attracted you to the blues the most? Because I always feel like everybody that's and I'm not a professional guitarist by a long shot, but I like playing guitar, and I'm attracted to blues very much. And I feel like everybody who's attracted to blues, there's some like demons that music helps us either accept, welcome, exercise, process in some way.
I think you're right. I think it affects you on so many levels, and it can be really happy, fun music, or it can be really sad. And I don't know. I think it's just the whole scope of it, the power of it, the things I've witnessed live from real blues musicians. after that, I'm like, I can't listen to anything else because this is happening. Like when I heard Ronnie Earl for the first time, I'm like, how could I do anything else? This is the most profound thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
This is so soulful. It's so unbelievably like honest and sad and
right.
And like I said, they exercise demons. They go deep down and they express these things. And this is expressed instrumentally without words, you know, so you don't even necessarily know what the words are. It's all interpretation, but it goes deep.
You just said something, and I think that's the best I've ever, very simple. You said it's so honest. And I think that is the essence of for whatever honest means to you or whoever's listening to it, but it's honest.
Yeah, it's honest, and it's damn hard to play. People don't. The reason why people aren't playing blues is because blues is really hard to play, and there's not training out there, and there's not enough clubs anymore to support that much playing that you have to do to be a great blues player. Because we had to play a lot. We had to be on the road a lot. We were playing 3 or 4 hours a night, night after night on the road, and there's just not a lot of people doing that anymore, and there's just not enough clubs. And, of course, blues has lost popularity. In a way, it might have even lost its way in a little ways, but it'll come back. You know, it'll always be there, but it's just hard. It's really hard music to play well. It's really hard.
Can you be more specific about that? Because I think I understand what you're saying, but I think a lot of people that are not understanding what you're saying are thinking it's hard to play. It's a pentatonic scale, but I understand.
Right. Yeah, I always say, and I have taught, I always say it's simple, but it ain't easy.
Right.
I mean, it's the most simple, and the reason why it's so hard is because there's so few elements to it. You have 3 chords, sometimes 1 chord. You have some basic scales, the major scale and the minor pentatonic, and how you mix those together. And it's the way you mix them, but also the thing about the blues is you have to find your own way with it, and your own message and your own personality. And I think that is sort of like a life's journey, which is sort of bigger. It's on a much bigger scale than just playing 1, 4, 5. Anybody can go to a blues jam, and then all of a sudden one person will pop out, and you'll say, "That's happening."
Yeah.
That was happening. I don't know about the rest of this. Some of it didn't land, but man, when it lands hard, right?
Definitely.
So I don't know how to explain it much more than that, but certainly the things I've seen, I'll never forget. They change you on a level that it's transforming, you know. And I always say a great jazz player has to be able to play blues. You can't play jazz if you can't play blues.
I wouldn't think.
But you can fake it. But if you know how to play blues, your jazz playing is going to be way heavier. And likewise with rock. If you really know how to play blues, your rock playing is going to be heavier. And I've worked with young students, and I've said that to them. I said the reason why you learn this stuff is because if you can learn this, you can go anywhere. But you can't necessarily go there and learn and know how to play this. You can play rock and not be a good blues player.
Yeah.
That happens. And you can play jazz and not be a good blues player. But if you can play blues first, you really are a better jazz player. Way better. I mean, Charlie Parker, from, anybody, Miles Davis, they were all blues, that's blues.
You mentioned a couple of times about stuff you've seen. Can you give an example? A concrete example?
Well, like I said, even watching Buddy Guy when he was playing I've seen him play real quiet and hold the audience in the palm of his hand for 15 minutes and not raise the dynamics. It's all dynamics. See, with blues, you're working with dynamics, you're working with tone. You really have to develop those real core elements of your playing. You need to know how to work and it's all within this really simple framework. And I think the slow blues is the hardest form to play because there's nothing to hold on to. It's so open. the field is so open that people want to fill it with a bunch of notes. And so, because they get nervous, but if they know how to loosen it up and open it up and it just express something right from their heart and say something really simple, it's got way more impact, right? But I've seen countless people do that in their own way. I mean, I still go and watch Jimmy Vaughan. He plays here in Austin, and he plays the slow blues in it's his own way, his own voice, his own style. And you go, man, that's so Jimmy Vaughan. Like nobody else is Jimmy Vaughan. So how do you do that, right?
What's interesting, the first time I heard you was you were playing a slow blues. It was on some YouTube video at a outdoor thing. And you don't know me from anywhere, but I'm not the guy to just say shit to blow smoke. The thing I was like, whoa, that's really different. And that's what attracted me to your playing, was like you had this thing going. And you're right. It was it's the hardest to do a slow blues because you want to fill it up. And I was like, wow, this is really soulful stuff. So, that was. Yeah.
Thank you. I love slow blues, and I think that's the most challenging form there is. It's just absolutely. It's more challenging than the fastest bebop tune, believe me, to play. Because a lot of those guys can't play a slow blues with 3 chords. They'd just be like, what? Hold on to. There's no harmonic structure to hold on to.
Right. That's what that makes.
It's like, what? There's 3 pieces, and it's like playing with. It's like painting with primary colors. It's like you have 3 colors, and okay, now make something beautiful just with 3 colors.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Something profound and honest and moving. It's like, how do we do that? I want to mix these colors and do something wild,
So I have to ask you like a fanboy question. You have a really cool way of playing your guitar, like with your fingernails or something. I don't know what the hell you're doing, but it's like, I've never seen it before, and it looks really difficult, but it sounds great. What do you do?
Well, I do have nails on, acrylics on my right hand. And I have studied flamenco technique, so I've incorporated that into my blues playing. I couldn't be a flamenco player per se. It's just too demanding, and I don't have the background for it. But I did take a few years of lessons in flamenco, and that tightened up my rhythm, but also gave me something unique to say with my right hand, which I think right hand technique is pretty much where I'm really fascinated. I don't really look at people's left hands too much, but the right hand, I think, is where your tone comes from. So I was always kind of interested, because I watched people like Clarence Gatemouth Brown, who didn't use a pick and he used his fingers, and I was always fascinated by, because what he was doing. So I was always, and Albert Collins didn't use a pick, he used his fingers, and he had the wildest tone, and I'm like, wow, how does he get that tone? That's coming from his fingers. So I always wanted to develop my right hand. I couldn't get that much speed with my left either, so I sort of had to balance out.
To make something yours.
Yeah, and to not try to compete on that level of speed, because I'm just not fast. And my hands aren't super big, so I don't have big stretches. I'm not going to really blow people away with my voicings, but my right hand sort of, I can balance it out with some good funky stuff I can do on the right hand.
Oh yeah, okay. So I feel better that asking that question now, because I knew something was going on that it's not like conventional or like standard stuff you're doing. I just didn't know what it was. It was just really
I applied nylon string, classical, and flamenco techniques to my telly playing.
To your telly, yeah. Everybody pays. We all pay tuition in our careers, no matter what we do. And I was wondering if you'd be kind enough to share maybe 1 or 2 mistakes that you made, tuition you paid along the way, and what you got out of that, what lessons you got out of that.
I think the biggest mistake I've made is expecting somebody else to do a job for me that I need to know how to do by myself. Which, like, when you're managing, like, sometimes you might take on a manager and you're like, okay, take care of all that stuff. and then it ends up not happening, or things go a certain direction because you really stopped navigating and you let somebody else navigate. And I think that's probably been my biggest lesson, is I've worked with, some people and then stopped my own navigation process, and when I should have just learned to do it myself and accepted that. I tell everybody now when I talk to young students or something like that, I'll say, just do it yourself. Learn how to do everything yourself, and before you hire somebody, because this is the straw that stirs the drink right here. Nobody else can stir it. So if anything goes wrong, you can hire people and then blame them for something going wrong, but it's your own fault. So you got to really accept the fact that everything starts and ends right here. So whatever's happening out there, it's because of what's happening here. It doesn't matter. You can work with a million people, but you still have to navigate your own career. And I think that's probably something I keep teaching myself.
No, I think it's important.
Better. Taking responsibility.
Yeah. But I think in general, I speak to literally hundreds of players, and that's, they all say, hey, I'm not good with business. And they're, what you're talking about, they're lumping that into anything outside of picking up the guitar is basically business, and and a lot of people say similar things like, you need to know how to do these things,
Yeah, and take responsibility for them, because it can cost you a lot of heartache and money, and it happens over and over and over. I mean, there's a million. You could go story after story after story, heartbreak story, where people have lost millions. Now, of course, I've not lost millions, but I've had a few setbacks and had to kind of refocus and go, okay, that was a mistake.
At least you did it, though.
Yeah.
You had a choice.
Yeah, you can't learn, and you shouldn't, and the whole thing about mistakes, like Miles Davis said, don't fear mistakes. You should just lean into the mistake if you do it, and accept it, and
forgive yourself.
And forgive yourself. Yeah. So,
the flip side of that, were there one or two things you did at the time that were like big steps for you, or out of your comfort zone, but turned into be really big breakthroughs and good things that you did?
Yeah, I think,
I'm sure moving to Austin was probably one of those.
Moving to Austin obviously was big, but it wasn't out of my comfort zone. Being a band leader was out of my comfort zone. I didn't want to sing.
Really?
I just wanted to be a sideman guitar player, and somebody told me very early on, thankfully they told me this when I was in my teens, and said, if you don't sing, you better be one hell of a guitar player, because everybody sings. I did not want to sing. So that was way out of my comfort zone. And then when I moved to Vancouver at 18, I wanted to just pick up a guitar gig, because I had just been playing guitar in a band, and I just wanted to be a guitar sideman, and I couldn't get a gig, so I had to form my own band, and that was a big step out of my comfort zone, but thankfully I did it. Those things happen for a reason, but that was obviously the best thing that could have happened.
Awesome.
I formed Sue Foley Band and did my own thing. And
you've never looked back? No,
I just had to do it, and I did it. And then once I did it, I was like, okay, this is good. I can, I got this. But it took a long time to get comfortable fronting a band and singing and doing the lead guitar. I mean, this is a big job.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of jobs at once, but it took me a long time to get there. So,
are you good with, or are you comfortable managing people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you the flip side. Do you like to be managed?
If somebody knows what they're doing, absolutely. Yeah. I don't mind. I'm good with either role. I'm a good sideman, and I'm a good leader. I know how to do both.
That's great.
Like in a show, I'm a side person. I step up a couple of times for a showcase tune or something, but the rest of the time I'm there to support those guys. But those guys are like wow.
Yeah, those guys, that's like the top of the food chain.
Yeah, so I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm like, glad man it is. I
Yeah.
could play all night behind Jimmy Vaughan.
Yeah.
Great.
If you can go back in time and give advice to younger Sue Foley, what advice would you have given yourself?
Believe in yourself. I think I would just say, yeah, believe in yourself. Don't undervalue yourself. That's what I would say. Because it's easy to not know your value. And I think they say it might be more of a female trait, that, you know, our tendencies are more to support other people or not necessarily assert ourselves. It's really hard for a young girl to assert herself.
Yeah.
It takes a long time. And that's why people call older women bitches, because we finally learned to, like, oh, what a bitch. Okay, get off my back. Right?
But no, you get to a certain age, it has nothing to do with gender. It's just, you know,
Yeah,
fuck it,
one.
leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a gender thing. It's like, you know, go away. I don't want to deal with it. And that's it, you know?
Yeah, like, I think in general, maybe young men and young women are different that way. Like it took me a long time. I mean, I was a young girl with guy musicians having to, you know, lead and that. It took me a long time to get confident with that. So
Yeah.
no problem now, but as a young kid, I would probably tell myself to, you know.
I give you credit because I don't think it was an easy thing to do. And you're in a business that is totally male dominated, and you were a different gender from a different country, you know, a different color than most of the people playing, you know. So I think you're feeling uncomfortable or tentative is probably pretty appropriate. You know, how the hell, you know, when you go back and look at it, you know, it's like, it's a big thing you did. So, you know, good for you.
Thanks.
Let's talk gear for a few minutes. What is all you play your telly?
Pretty much what I play live is my telly. I got it brand new in 1987, 88, around that time. It's a late 80s model Fender Telecaster, pink paisley. It was made in Japan. And
oh, cool.
Same guitar since that time. It's pretty crazy. It's been refretted a couple times. Otherwise, it's got all stock pickups, for better or for worse. I've just kept it the same way, and I'm afraid to mess with it now because I think it sounds good. So I'm like,
yeah.
So it's just a stock telly.
How did that? Have you seen a Made in America telly from the same period? And like, can you tell the differences between the?
I don't know much about them. Like, I really am not a real aficionado as far as models and years and where they're made. I know I've played some in stores. I've played some of the older ones, and I still prefer mine. I'm just comfortable on mine, and we've bonded, so it's good.
Yeah, you talk to some people, and they're like, "Oh, in '87 they had the Goto tuners," and they're like, "Holy shit, how do you know that?"
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of information. I just can't follow it all. So I'm just, you know, I've been with the same guitar. It still sounds great, and I play it every night. It's beat to hell. But man, a good investment.
Yeah, I would say
$100 or whatever it cost at the time. I got my money's worth.
Yeah,
and then I play a nylon string, and I do that in my show as well. And that's a Mexican-made, I think it's Federico Garcia or something. It's just a Mexican-made nylon string, pretty standard. Nothing super. It wasn't a super expensive guitar. It's pretty. It sounds good and it works. And likewise, I've just been playing that live. It's kind of getting beat up though because it's not as resilient as a telly, as you can imagine.
Are you doing like flamenco stuff on that?
Yeah, I do that sort of Latin stuff I do, and I do acoustic stuff on that. So
what are you going to do when that guitar says it's time to go?
I'll get another nylon. I'll probably get an actual flamenco. That's what I really wanted, was a flamenco guitar. didn't get one.
All right. So flamenco guitar manufacturers listening to this, here's a good opportunity to get a awesome.
Yeah, I would love to get a flamenco guitar.
There you go.
If you make me one or provide me with one, I will push the heck out of it.
That's right. You can get an awesome.
Because mine's getting beat up.
There you go. Opportunity.
Thank you. Wow.
You're welcome. I'm a marketing guy. It's like I can't help but think like that. It's like bing.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I need a new one. I need a new Paisley Telly too. To be fair, because on and off airplanes with that thing is getting a little precarious now.
All right, this is ridiculous. Someone's going to step up here. I've got a ton of luthiers listening to this, so get a hold of Sue Foley. She's an amazing. You want Sue Foley? She's out gigging the shit out of your guitar. Though you want her with your guitar. So there you go. I'm like a dating broker for guitar. Musically, if I asked you to pick your top 3 Desert Island discs in no particular order, and knowing this can change tomorrow, what would be the top 3 albums you choose right now?
Probably a Chess Records compilation called Drop Down Mama, which I really like. It's got Robert Nighthawk and Johnny Shines and a bunch of really low down blues on it. Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers, maybe.
Great album.
And no particular order, and it's really hard to pick 3. Ann Peebles, I Can't Stand the Rain. I love that. Anything by Memphis Minnie. It'd be good to have some Memphis Minnie. Bessie Smith, Columbia Records. I know I can't.
You're getting a little out of control now. So.
Narrow it
down. What have you learned about yourself throughout this whole journey?
Oh. Well, I think that I don't follow too many people, that I've been able to do this, and I don't know, just follow my own path in life, and I'm pretty happy about that I followed my own path and made a go out of it, and it's worked out. Think about where I'm from. I'm Canadian, I'm white, I'm everything that you're not supposed to be as a blues guitar player.
I agree.
And I've made a go out of it, and I'm talking to you, and I don't know, people seem to like what I do, so I've been able to follow my own way, and I think that's really been, wow, that's pretty cool.
Good for you. Yeah, I think that's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm always the guy who loves the underdog, so that's my whole life. I've always rooted for the underdogs, and so I think what you said is pretty accurate, and it's good.
Yeah, I took a path that's definitely less traveled, and it's all right. It's worked out.
What's a perfect day for you?
Get up, go to the gym, come back, play guitar, work on my stuff, see my kid, have a good meal, see my boyfriend, go have a gig.
Very cool. Gym, guitar, son, meal, boyfriend, gig.
I don't know if I could do the gym and a gig on the same day, but
That was impressive when you said go to the gym, Sue. That's like, I've interviewed 250 guitarists and maybe 3 go to the gym.
I try to do that almost every day. So.
Yeah. It's not a big...
but not on gig days and not when I'm on tour, so...
Yeah.
It's hard to put both things, but having a gig on a day makes a good day, that's for sure.
Tell me something about yourself that people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Well, mentioning the gym, I like yoga, I like green smoothies. I'm super kind of healthy person. I work really hard, I like to work. I could be kind of boring, maybe, if you just...
I could be kind of boring.
I just I do kind of, run-of-the-mill stuff, but, and then I have this other side, I go out and jam, so.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but yeah, basically I'm pretty grounded, yoga doing, green smoothie drinking woman.
I smell a song title in there somewhere.
Yeah, really.
Green smoothie mama. Favorite part of your job and least favorite?
Well, favorite part is playing with a great band with great sound. Least favorite? Probably getting on airplanes.
Most important lesson your business has taught you?
I think what I said before about deciding you're going to be the straw that stirs the soup, and that you need to take control of everything you need to take not just control but responsibility for everything that's happening. I think that's really important because it's so easy to lay the blame or be a victim. Like, I'm here because, hey man, I chose to be a blues player, right? I didn't choose to be a popular music person. This is not popular music. This is not commercial art. I need to take responsibility for the fact that, hey, I might not be playing stadiums and I may not be a millionaire, right? I don't have to sit there and go, business sucks. People don't listen to blues. It's like, okay, you chose to be a blues player. You knew B.B. King was not getting the same pay as Mick Jagger, right? So that's stuff like that, right? Like, I like the path that I chose. You got to make the best of it. You really have to stay positive.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you have to stay on the positive side and not the negative, and that's just a life lesson, right?
Yeah. With everything you're doing, it's just like being negative, just like
being negative is just
sucks. It just drains everything. It really does. You don't have a high win rate going in negative,
Yeah.
And then last question, what's your definition of happiness?
I guess just being content, just being all right with the moment, and just not wanting anything to fulfill any particular moment, or things have to be a certain way. So I guess just accepting what is. Yeah. Great.
All righty. Let me tell, thank you so much for everything. You're super candid, and I really appreciate and respect that. And
well, thank you.
Besides being a great player,
it's a great interview.
Thank you.
I'm not used to this kind of, I appreciate that you did so much background work. Most people, they've barely looked at a bio, and they'll just be like, "So how did you start playing guitar?" Like they know nothing. So when somebody knows what they're doing. Plus, I do interviews, so I appreciate when somebody's done their
well, thanks.
Work.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. And thanks for being a great guest and being so transparent and being so honest and real. Let me tell people where to find you. First of all, it's Sue Foley. If you are interested in blues and you like the blues and you've not heard of Sue, please check her out. She's just a phenomenal player. And really watch how she plays if you're a guitarist. I know most of the people listening to this are guitar players. Check her out on some YouTube videos. Just got a great right-hand style. Check out her new album. It's called Ice Queen. Her album is fantastic. 12 awesome blues cuts. If you're into vocals, check out If I Have Forsaken You. You will not hear better singing like ever on anything you'll listen to. And I mean that. I'm not like just blowing smoke up your rear end. That was just like, wow. I had never heard anything like that. Also, Sue has an article, a column she writes. Is it every month in Guitar Player?
Every month, the Foley Files.
The Foley Files, and we'll talk about it. Tell people about it.
It's excerpts from the interviews I've done with women guitar players. So it's just a short excerpt, but it's usually some good candid stuff from some of my heroes and people I've interviewed myself.
Awesome. And Sue's getting ready to go on tour through Europe, then Canada, and back down to the States. So go to her website. It's Sue Foley, Foley, Sue Foley, SueFoley.com. Check her out. Please support Sue. Buy her albums. Come see her on tour. And check out how she plays guitar. It's really cool. Any final words of wisdom?
Just thank you very much. That was a great interview.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Likewise. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Sue Foley for spending all this time with us and being so candid. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up and get on our newsletter to get notified of future episodes along with some product announcements and discounts. And this is important. Remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.